The Lucid Air is ready to dethrone the Model S with the best driving range and fastest charging technology of any electric vehicle on the market. There was a time when if you wanted to buy a quick luxury EV, you used to go straight to Tesla.com, click on Model S, and empty your pockets. But now you have something else to consider. The Lucid Air is the new kid on the block, and we're going to take a detailed look at it. Stick around until the end because we're going to explain to you the experience of test riding the Lucid Air. A lucid dream is one in which you have some degree of control over it, allowing your imagination to run wild. That appears to be the mindset of those responsible for bringing the all-wheel drive Lucid Air Dream Edition to reality because it shouldn't exist in the first place. The team created by CEO Peter Rawlinson was not only building the plane while flying it, but they were also marketing and funding the complex project at the same time. On paper, the results are as astounding as they are difficult to believe. How could a first-time automaker come out of nowhere with not only a stunner of an all-electric vehicle, but one with numbers to back it up? This work of art provides an unparalleled EPA range of 520 miles in the 933 horsepower range spec and 1,111 horsepower and 471 miles in the performance spec. The elegantly designed Air appears to be long, low, and wide, so it must be a hefty sled concealing a large battery pack and a pair of enormous motors, right? Wrong. The two electric drive units have a combined output of 670 horsepower, yet each weighs just 163 pounds and fits into a carry-on briefcase. That's a 4.1 horsepower per pound power density, which is about threefold that of a 6.2-liter supercharged Hellcat V8 without the transmission, prop shaft, or rear differential. The Lucid illustration, on the other hand, depicts full coaxial drive units which comprise an electric motor, power inverter, differential, final drive reduction gear, and a pair of embedded axle driving flanges. The battery pack that powers these electric vehicles isn't a monster of unfathomable proportions. Lucid is achieving that insane range out of a 112.0 kilowatt battery. The Air's EPA combined efficiency of 125 miles per gallon equivalent for the Dream and 131 miles per gallon equivalent for the Grand Touring is greater than compact electric vehicles like the Chevrolet Bolt's 118 miles per gallon equivalent and the Hyundai Kona Electric's 120 miles per gallon equivalent. The choice to develop and produce all of these engine components in the battery pack in-house, according to a Lucid supply chain specialist, was the secret sauce. Off-the-shelf or even Tier 1 supplier-developed components would not allow for the design optimization required to achieve Lucid's desired power, range, and packaging efficiency. The crew began by targeting the limits of physics, not other vehicles, according to Chief Engineer Eric Bach, who summed up the unchanging clean sheet mentality. The quest for maximum range and packing effectiveness led to a system that works at up to 924 volts rather than the standard 400 volts or the 800 volts of the Porsche Taycan or the Audi e-tron GT. By doubling the voltage, they reduce the quantity of current and therefore heat is diminished, making Lucid the creator of some of the most heat-resistant and compact powertrains on the market. The motor's small size results in a surprising amount of interior room and trunk volume. The only thing standing in the way of a great driving position is the touchscreen-based steering column, tilt telescope, and side mirror adjustment mechanism, which is better than Tesla's, but not by much. Aside from that, the 34-inch floating 5K display panel serves as a magnificent centerpiece to an otherwise well-kept and appealing cockpit. Although the rear legroom is nearly as spacious as the front, the posture is more comparable to that of a chase lounge. The front seats of the Dream and GT are positioned low against the underfloor battery pack. While this aids with the Air's ultra-slim roofline, it prevents backseat passengers from tucking their feet behind the front seats. The future Touring and Pure versions address this by using an 18-module battery rather than a 22-module pack, with the 4 modules missing being located where the back passenger's feet normally rest. The trade-off creates about a 100-mile reduction of range, knocking 500 down to 4. And now, time for what you have all been waiting for. What's the experience like to ride inside this exquisite EV? Given that the car would be released later this year, with reservations taken now, the manufacturers have been slow to offer test drives. The actual drives are expected to take place in August or September. Instead, a friend of ours was lucky enough to experience a test ride on the roads around Lucid's Casa Grande, Arizona, and he was more than happy to share his Lucid experience with us. When the Air Dream took off, it absolutely stunned with its apparently endless supply of torque and astonishingly effortless speed. To summarize, there's no reason to question Lucid's horsepower claims, 2.5 second, 60 mile per hour acceleration claim, or 9.9 second quarter mile estimate. Still, those are figures for the Dream Performance model, which is sold out. The 800 horsepower Grand Touring variant is expected to cover the quarter mile in 11 seconds, while the Dream Range model should be somewhere in the middle. Smooth, Swift, and Sprint are the three driving modes available on the Lucid. In every one of these modes, motor response, damper calibration, steering effort, and regenerative braking are all different. Regenerative braking is a revolutionary concept that actually recharges the battery of electric and hybrid vehicles during deceleration, absorbing the kinetic energy for later use. The assumption is that drivers in a sports mindset want to manage and feel the standard friction brakes, which is why the Swift and Sprint modes hone in on the traditional brake system, leaving the majority of the signs to smooth. Because the two systems aren't mixed in any manner, the pedal feels predictable and genuine. In any mode, those who want a high amount of regen braking can pick the high configuration. The multi-link front suspension has a virtual pivot steering axis, which improves steering accuracy and straight line stability. Integral Link is a distinct multi-link architecture used for the rear suspension. When it comes to comfort and performance, both make life easier. Despite the different impacts of power application, regen braking, and friction braking, electrically assisted power steering gives a constant feel and a strong sensation of straight ahead. On one especially bad stretch of tarmac, the optional low-profile 21-inch Pirelli tires made a lot of noise. Backseat passengers were more aware of it, but were prepared to chalk it up to the gritty asphalt colliding with the sportiest of the three tire options. If you needed another reason to not go for the 21s, the EPA range drops to 481 miles when they're spec'd out. Tesla's dust is suffocating mainstream EV automakers. They're on course to sell over 1 million electric vehicles globally this year, defying all odds for startup auto businesses and a cottage industry of skeptics. And its $888 billion valuations are roughly 10 times that of General Motors. Whatever one may think of Elon Musk, 1 million vehicles a year and new plants opening in China, Berlin, and Austin aren't smoke and mirrors. Lucid plans to be next up, working to become a well-known automobile brand with a growing portfolio and a waiting list of clients. For the time being, Lucid executives say that the Air's actual objectives are the Mercedes S-Class and other premier internal combustion cars, not the significantly less luxury Model S, but it's impossible not to draw parallels between the two. The Lucid Air Dream Edition is sold out, but you may book a Grand Touring for $139,000 and have it delivered in the first half of next year. A Touring or the $77,000 Pure may also be reserved, but they won't be available until the second half of 2022. And now we want to hear from you. Leave your verdict in the comments below. What would you go for? The newcomer Lucid or the familiar tried and tested Tesla? If you're choosing the Lucid, which model would you go for? Whatever it is, let us know, and don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.